welcome back to the Retention Edge podcast. I've got Sam Davies from Creative Force here. Sam, give everyone an introduction on yourself, man.
Yeah, firstly, Eric, thank you so much for having me. I head up content at Creative Force and Dreem. Creative Force is an e-commerce platform for high volume retail brands, and we help them with their content production from start to finish. Dreem is a virtual production studio for smaller brands, and it helps brands turn flat shot images into pack shots and virtual models and videos. And I'm sure we can get into that a lot more, but that's a very brief introduction on my side.
Very cool. And I guess, who are the ideal customers, both on the larger scale side with content production overall, and then with Dream and the types of businesses you guys are trying to work with there?
Yeah, so Creative Force is an enterprise platform. So we are working with very large fashion and apparel brands that have tens, if not hundreds of thousands of SKUs, and they need to manage multiple people and tools in one platform. We have customers like Calvin Klein and Bestseller. I think we actually have some mutual customers, which is interesting. Dream is more for smaller lean e-commerce brands, maybe Shopify stores. And our ICP for Dreem is the time-strapped e-commerce manager that is super focused on getting conversions up and reducing time to market and not wanting to be constrained by so many bottlenecks. So that's a brief summary of the two.
So break down the Dream platform. Give it a little bit more detail here. Like how does it work? What are the advantages? Where are the weaknesses, I guess, in the platform still? Nothing's
Mm.
perfect in AI as of yet. Yeah, walk me through it.
Yeah, sure. I'll actually start with the second part of the question. I was in the Dream platform today, and what we're trying to do is simplify content production. So imagine the traditional photo shoot. Let's say that you have a t-shirt, you need to hire a model, you need to hire a photographer, you need to maybe even hire a studio, maybe not if you're doing a lifestyle shot. And there are multiple steps in this workflow where you have multiple people, multiple stakeholders. And the vision for Dream is, imagine starting with one image and being able to build what we call a content kit. So all of your assets for your product pages, for social, for ads, all in the right dimensions, and just starting from even a mediocre image taken on your phone. So the way Dream works is you photograph photograph your products, maybe a t-shirt on the back of a chair. You can also use vendor provided images. You can also use images from, say, your Shopify store, as Dream syncs with these big platforms, or at least will when we go live. And you can take these images, you can put them on a model, you can choose poses, you can even build a style that you want to have for that product, and then you can either publish directly to your platform or you can download them. And I think it's interesting what you mentioned at the end of your question, because it's really important to be mindful of those limitations. And what I was playing around with this morning was I was turning a virtual model into a video, and it was a t-shirt with a logo on the front and a very small detail on the back. And when the model would turn around, once she had done a full rotation, the image on the front had changed completely. And so that's when good
Hmm.
prompting comes in, and actually thinking like a creative director, how would you advise this model to actually pose wearing this item? And there's a lot of fun there that you can do with the prompting, of course. I think one of the big problems that Dream solves is actually doing this at scale. Of course, you can go into other platforms like Nano Banana and other platforms like that, and you can sit there and do this. But we really have 10 plus years of experience working with some of these big retail brands. We know the importance of taxonomy and styling and lighting. And a lot of brands, they really have their own brand voice. And in a world where there is so much AI generated content, you want to be able to have your unique voice as well, your unique stamp on the content that you're creating, whether it's copywriting or image creation. So yeah, we can go into more details on some of those things, but that would be the gist of it.
Where do you think the industry is heading? I think it was H&M that got in a lot of heat for using AI models, or yeah, I forget which brand, but I'm pretty sure it was H&M. Got a lot of backlash, not just from the modeling community, but also like the general community at large. I think Coca-Cola, released their Christmas ad and got a lot of backlash because it's all AI too, even though they had like a team of people prompting it for months to actually create that ad, which might as well have, which is an interesting fact in itself. But like what's your take on like where the industry is gonna go there and how consumers will react to more and more of this content being completely AI generated?
Yeah, I think there are two parts to this question. Firstly, you're right, it was H&M. I think that was really more of a marketing stunt more than anything. It was a very interesting case because they were essentially taking a model that they had already paid for a shoot, and
Hmm.
they were giving her the licensing to be able to use that model elsewhere. And so that's one side of it. I think that's very empowering for models, and I think that's a very progressive way to look at the industry. Why should a model not be able to use their likeness in ways that go
Yep.
beyond them having to get on a plane and go to a photo shoot and so on? I think another part of this as well is there are some brands that have been quote unquote caught out for using AI. I think Vogue is a good example. They had a model that was AI generated in their print magazine, and they disclosed it kind of in the spine of the
Hmm.
magazine, and a lot of people were commenting on it. I think it is really about transparency. A good example is Tommy Hilfiger. I noticed recently they've just started using AI models on their product pages. And I don't know the full specifics as to whether they're using AI models, but also for video, or they're actually hiring a model, which is most likely, and then they're turning that into video. That's another way of doing it as well.
Hmm.
That's something that a lot of brands are doing, and they are disclosing it actually on the product page. And I think that's kind of an interesting hybrid way of doing it, where you have hired a model and you've paid them, and maybe you've even paid them extra so that you can turn their likeness into a video. I think that's a discussion that we're going to see a lot more in the future. And so I think for anyone listening to this that is in this space, that is actually considering using AI models, especially if you're in fashion and apparel, I think you should test it. You should be fully upfront about that you're using it. You should do these small experiments. For example, in your email marketing, if you already have model shots, why don't you split test your campaigns and have model versus video? Or instead of having to do a reshoot for another season, why don't you just use AI to change the clothing? There was one brand that we spoke to, and they're using AI to do a lot of the styling of their products because maybe they can get an objective, even fresh perspective on how they should actually be styling a lot of their clothing. So I think it really comes down to being very open minded and not being afraid to actually test some of these things and actually get some results for yourself to see if it works for you and your brand before you don't try anything. Because I think there's a lot of fear right now with trying these things, but I think there's a lot of opportunity to capitalize on as well.
The That's interesting that you bring up the whole like disclosure of it being AI generated content, whether it's the model or the photo or the video itself, whatever it is. Uh, there's a big talk online like yesterday. I think someone from like Microsoft came out and was talking about how I don't think it was. I think it was a lower level person, but talking a little bit about how like it's annoying that everything has to be labeled as AI generated now. But at the same time, TikTok as an example, anytime there's AI content, they
Mm.
have this like little banner at the bottom of the video saying this video is AI generated or whatever. Do you think that's the future where like anything, and it might even be a regulatory thing eventually? I don't know, but do you think that that's where the future is going, where like anything that is AI generated has to be labeled as such? And do you think that's actually a good thing for the future, or do you think that's gonna be an issue?
It's a really interesting question. I'm thinking a lot about this at the moment because my background is in direct response copywriting. And I'm thinking
Hmm.
all the time, when is anything 100% AI or 100% human? If you write
Good
an
point.
ad and you get feedback from a model on how you could improve your ad and you see the before and after, and maybe you implement 2 out of the 3 suggestions, is it no longer yours? It's almost more of a philosophical question. I think the same will happen with a lot of fashion and apparel content as well. Like the example I just mentioned, if you're turning a real model shot into video, of course the video is AI generated, but it was based entirely on a human and it's
Hmm.
reflecting that human. So I think that's one way of looking at it. I think we're at a really interesting time where people are throwing around terms like AI slop. Well, we kind of know what that means, but what about there is good AI content as well?
Yeah.
And I think there are so many interesting use cases. I think everything that we've seen in the vibe coding space, I think we're going to see on the content side as well. Why can't you use AI as a co-pilot, as an advisor, as someone that can give you objective feedback? I was having this conversation with my manager recently. He was saying in the past, I would give you feedback on the destination. Sorry, the vehicle. So, for example, let's say I'm writing a marketing email. Maybe he will give me some feedback on it. But now AI can give me feedback on the vehicle and the destination, maybe even better than my manager because it has all the context, not just from my manager, but from multiple people as well. And so to answer that question, it's a very difficult question to answer. I don't think there should be full disclosure like that with every single thing, but I think it's just about talking about it and actually maybe we'll even see something like, this image is 60% AI generated. And I think there was even some
Partially AI or fully
yeah,
AI or whatever. Yeah.
I think there was actually one. I think there was one big media site. It might have been the New York Times, and they actually had this disclaimer, and it was something like, "This article has been researched by AI, edited by a human, and then copy edited a final time by AI." And it actually like broke down
Hmm.
the the portfolio, and I think that's really interesting as well because you could then ask, okay, when would you not read something if it was more than 50% human? Does that mean that it's less good? I think we could go very deep on that topic, but there's a few thoughts there for you.
Well, well, it's funny because you're basically just bringing up the whole like paradox of like the ship of Theseus, in essence, right? Which is like, okay, like at what point does something become AI generated? Is it AI generated if I'm prompting it for 10 hours to create an image that I want or a video that I want?
Mm,
At that point, it's like almost human generated, but with the help of AI. Whereas if I just tell AI, give me a video of this, it's fully AI at that point. Very little human ingenuity involved in kind of producing that. Uh, so yeah, it's an interesting point. And then exactly right. Like, if I take a picture of a model, then the lighting's bad and like, maybe the logo isn't showing well or whatever it is. And then you use AI to enhance the lighting and then you use it to add some background, you know, uh, context into it or whatever, does it become AI generated at that point or it's not? So yeah, I think it is going to be an interesting question. It's going to be a harder and harder question to answer moving forward. I do wonder though, um, if I'm a store and I have my whole store, I have 100 products, 200 products, whatever it is, and half my images say that they're AI generated on them. I wonder if that impacts conversion rates eventually, where consumers will have less trust in that end image compared to an image where they know someone actually took that and
mm,
even and the funny thing is, and it's kind of ironic, is even if I'm a photographer and I take a photo of a model wearing a shirt or whatever, it still goes through Photoshop and still gets edited completely anyways, just like it would through AI. So
mm.
like should you really have trust in either? I don't know, but I think like if I'm thinking at like a base level and my like base reaction would be, I would suspect that I'd be a little bit more distrustful of that image. So I wonder if you guys have thought about that at all.
Yeah, that's really interesting, especially the point about Photoshop, because I don't know how that was reacted to at the time, especially when that was a lot more prevalent. But it does raise a very interesting question regarding the point about conversions. I think that's such a valid point because, again, I think that's something that one should test with their own marketing. And I saw one person saying on LinkedIn recently, I don't care if I read a book and then I find out that the book is written by AI. I don't really care if I enjoyed the book. And I'm wondering if people will have the same reaction if they're looking at fashion and apparel content that is AI generated, but they like what they see. And when they get the clothing, they try it on and it fits. Does it really matter? And I think that's a very interesting way of looking at it. I think what's important right now is that models represent diversity, body types, everything like that that we would expect to see from traditional product photography. I think that's important. I think another thing that's very important to represent as well is all of the skill involved in actually taking those shots to begin with. I'm a little bit afraid of next generations losing mastery that we've seen in previous generations, 10,000 hours of practice and everything like that. But there is also an opportunity for using AI to teach you, give you feedback. I think that's something that is going to be very well capitalized on by certain people if we're not seeing it already in younger people.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but those are a few thoughts
I
I
mean,
had.
I don't think there's a correct answer, right? I mean, I think it's such a tough debate to have because even to your like last point a little bit around like, the whole 10,000 hours and mastering your craft and everything. Is it realistic to expect a 20-year-old to actually read a full book nowadays when they can get the most detailed possible answer ever? And then even back in the day, we had I forget what the website was, but you had like 10-minute versions of all the books and everything that you can use and everything
Blinkist.
too. Yeah, there you go. And so, we had that at the time 10, 15, 20 years ago too, but it wasn't as detailed and as it is now, especially because now you can provide it the actual question and it'll provide you
Mm,
that answer too. But anyways, we're getting sidetracked. Let's talk about like the benefits now, right? Because I think we've talked a little bit about like some of the worries that people have around it, but there's so much good to come out of it too. So if I, especially to your point, if I'm a small brand and I have 100 products I want to release, and I need to hire a studio and a photographer and models and get lighting and equipment and all these different things. And then maybe I need to take uh, shots in multiple locations because, if I'm an outdoor brand, I need mountains and I need jungle and I need blah, 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 whatever, whatever it is. I might be spending tens of thousands of dollars just to get my imagery out there for that. And then I have to edit it after and pay for that also. But, I'm going to spend tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars just to like get my products out there. Whereas now, if I have my products and I can just, take a picture of it on my floor here and I can somehow generate a, you know, relatively good or great, I don't know if it's there yet, but or great imagery for that product, it makes it 10 times easier to start my business or to get my products out there. Similar to how, Shopify made it easier to launch a store. So now that anyone can launch a store in like a day versus it would have taken, a gigantic tech budget to custom build a whole store from scratch years before. But I guess like is that where you guys see this solution heading, and have you guys tested it out yet with the some smaller brands?
yeah, so absolutely. I think what I'm most excited about now is, as you've probably seen, if you're in the AI space, there are these new models coming all the time. We had Nano Banana recently, and then we had the new Nano Banana Pro go live even more recently. And on the Dream side, every time there are these new models, we're able to just completely upgrade the output. And that was something I was playing around with this morning and just seeing, for example, let's say that you have a lifestyle shot, just turning that into video with or without a prompt. It's lifelike. You would not know. And it's just absolutely fascinating how this technology is available to smaller brands that, like you say, don't have the resources, they don't have the budget, they don't have the team to necessitate all of these steps that are commonly found in traditional production workflows. And so I think I see a future where small, scrappy e-com brands can really compete with the big retailers, because at the big retailers there's so many decisions that need to be made and steering the ship is so much slower. Speed is the advantage now. These small brands, they can try a tool like
Mm,
Dream and they can get started immediately. They can start running a split test immediately. They can do all their content for their PDP, for the social immediately, like you said, with just one image. And Of course, quality is sometimes affected by the prompt. You have to learn how to prompt, but that isn't the bottleneck to getting great outputs. And so it's truly remarkable, Eric, when I say, even when we started working on Dream a few months ago, just in the last couple of weeks, just with the new models that have been coming out, it's just been absolutely jaw dropping, the change in quality. And so we've been testing it with with a select few Creative Force customers, and we're starting to do beta testing with some other brands at the time of this recording as well. But so far, the feedback has been phenomenal, and we've got some great inputs as well. Of course, one of the most common inputs is, yes, this is great, but how do I maintain my brand's look? We have a very visual style with our images. What about models? Can I use my own models? Yes, all of that is coming. That's something that we're working on. That's something that we are
Sure.
super cognizant of. And so I think there is so much opportunity here for us and for the small brands that we're supporting. And so, yeah, I think it's nothing but up from here.
It does seem like the great equalizer to an extent, because yeah, you're right. If I'm a gigantic, you know, tens of thousands of employees brand, I have to go through 8 levels or 5 levels of approval just to get my images out there. Whereas if I'm a small business with, you know, 2, 4, 5, 10 people, it's maybe just 1 level of approval, or I just go live with it myself. And you can very often tell the difference between a like you know, a Lululemon and Aritzia and like all these like really higher end brands that have really great imagery and product images and everything, compared to someone that's like, you know, just set up a Shopify store 5 months ago and is putting out their products there. Like there's a very big difference in quality.
Hmm.
And I do wonder if this is the equalizer to an extent where now I can put out Lululemon level photographs and images of my, and potentially video, I guess, too, of my products without having that budget that they have as well. And I think that's going to be super interesting to see, because then you're looking at these two sites and you're like, oh, they both look equally professional. They
Mm.
both, you know, because I think like, you know, to an extent, Lululemon, yeah, they have a great product and everything like that, but it's the branding, it's the imagery, it's you feel confident with like the decision. It's a really aesthetic like website and experience, shopping experience. And if Shopify brands that are smaller can start matching that, it'll be interesting to see how that dynamic changes over time.
Yeah, I think so too. And obviously, with SMBs, with our particular ICP, let's say you're doing 1 to 10 million in annual revenue, and you have good branding, you have a strong identity when it comes to visual design, you have a marketing budget, you have some team members. I think if you're super lean and you're AI friendly and the team is on board and they want to try different things, I think there is a lot of opportunity there. And I think it's going to give them the edge over, say, like you said, maybe someone starting off. Maybe maybe they don't know what good looks like, and I think that's the big thing with AI right now. Is our CEO Thomas Craigland, he says that taste is the differentiator. You have to have
Hmm.
good taste, and that's why I was testing prompts today, because I don't know how a creative director thinks when they're directing models in a photo shoot. I want to learn how to do that so I can prompt better. I think we're going to be learning lots of interesting meta skills with using AI. And of course, we're going to have a lot of personal context as well. We had this idea of, okay, imagine you go into Dream and you just take a screenshot of your homepage and you say, this is my brand style guide. Look at the colors, look at the lighting, look at how the models are stood. Here's some example with the new Nano Banana Pro update. Now AI can analyze video. So imagine
Hmm.
even being able to take your own ads and say, okay, this performs really well. I want you to break down why it performs well so I can replicate it for another ad on another channel and take best practices and take this context from here, this input from this manager.
Or
I
even like
think that's when it's,
replicate that video too, and then split test it on different ads
yes,
and see if you have like a slightly better performing version of that exact same video.
exactly. And if you've ever worked with paid and you know how frustrating it is to get all the dimensions right and things like that, now it's just one input, multiple output, everything's good to go. You can publish directly. So I think that, talking back to having speed as an advantage, okay, you have this time back now. where else can you use it? How can you use that? And I think that's kind of a skill in itself that I think a lot of people are
Yep.
learning right now as well. I know at Creative Force, like we are using AI internally and we're getting so much time back, but we can actually do even more marketing. And it's usually a good compliment when somebody says something like, hey, I thought you were a bigger team. I thought you were a bigger company because of how
Hmm.
much output you're getting in your marketing. So yeah, those were a few thoughts there.
Yeah, you're actually making a really great point because a lot of people, like you said, use the term AI slop. And, to be fair to them, very often you'll see content and it is just complete garbage, right? I think that arguably is probably the majority of AI content out there, like the vast majority. But if you have taste, if you have skill, if you know how to prompt, if you know how to if you're a creative director and you can take what you do with the models in person and you're able to bring that into your prompting skills and create these great and prompt the AI properly, you can create these great pieces of content that you wouldn't call AI slop, right? You just consider it to be great content because it does actually take skill, even in the world of AI, to actually create differentiated, great content.
Yeah, and I think if you are skilled and you do have taste, I think that will become even more important as time goes on because what happens now is people see that AI slop and it's like ad blindness, right? They just turn off. And so I think if you are good at what you do and you're also using AI to enable that to make you be even better. Like if you were an 8 out of 10 copywriter, now with AI you can be a 10 out of 10 copywriter because you can write your content, you can write your copy and you can get that feedback and you can take it to a 10 out of 10. And I think, like you say, to your point, it's about skills. It's about learning these meta skills with prompting and already still learning and having that knowledge that you can use as your input, collecting all that context and really being the term I think I've heard used a lot is orchestration. You are orchestrating how to use AI and it is based
I
on all
like
of
that.
these things. Yeah.
That's really cool. Sam, thank you so much for doing this, man. This has been awesome. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been my pleasure. And I just want to say, Eric, at the end of the call here, if anyone likes what we've talked about here, I really invite you to go to Dreem.ai. That's Dream spelled DREEM. So that's Dreem.ai. Try Dream. We will probably be live by the time this recording goes out. We are opening for early beta in December. And if you want some free credits and you want to try Dreem, you can just email me. It's sam@creativeforce.io and tell me listen to the podcast and we'll give you some free credits to try Dreem out as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Sam, so much. Take care, man.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Eric.